Okay, now we're going to talk about the basics of angles. So here I have two angles, angle ABC and DEF, and if I mark them like this, those little curvy things say that they have the same measure. So what we'll say is that angle ABC is congruent to angle DEF. So just like in segments, this means is congruent. Okay, and congruent means has the same shape. So equal when it comes to shapes is congruent to. Okay, so that's congruent angles. We then have something called adjacent angles. So I'm going to draw some adjacent angles. So these are adjacent. And adjacent, right, means next to. So I'm going to draw some examples of adjacent angles. Okay, so we might say angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent. We might say angle 3 and angle 4 are adjacent. They don't have to be equal to each other. They don't have to add up to anything. They are just next to each other. Another relationship of angles is we have complementary. Okay, complementary, and this is going to become important. Complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90. So if we say this is, say, 50 degrees, and we have some other angle over here that is 40 degrees, these two angles are complementary. Complementary means adds to 90, right? So two angles that add to 90. We could have, right, 2 degrees and 88 degrees. Those are all complementary angles, okay? Then we have supplementary angles. This is probably the most important word in this video, supplementary. It's kind of like complementary, except for it means it adds to 180. Okay, so supplementary, two angles that add up to 180. So we could say this is 160 degrees, and then we have some other angle that's 20. Those two angles are supplementary. Okay, supplementary angles, as complementary angles too, could be adjacent. So I could say, hey, here is a 100-degree angle, and then I'm going to say here's an 80-degree angle. These two angles, let's give them names, X, Y, Z, and W. So we can say angle XYZ and angle ZYW are supplementary and adjacent. Okay, these angles up here, the 160 and the 20, these are only supplementary, right? They're not adjacent, they do not share a side. These angles, however, are not only supplementary but also adjacent. Okay, so when angles are supplementary are adjacent, that means they are a linear pair. Okay, so a linear pair are two angles that are supplementary and adjacent. So make sure you get that down. Last pair of angles are, are vertical angles. Okay, and what vertical angles are, and I'll say the definition, but what's much more important is a picture. Okay, and so what adjacent angles are two angles created when lines intersect that are not adjacent. So what that means is if I have two lines intersecting, the two not adjacent angles. So maybe this, not maybe, this one and this one. So 1 and 2 are vertical. Similarly, 3 and 4 are vertical. Okay? You don't need to know the definition written out, but you do need to recognize the picture. Okay? So it's the two angles that aren't adjacent when two lines intersect. Okay, one thing I want you to think about that we're going to talk about in the next video is vertical angles, so 1 and 2 here, or 3 and 4, are going to be congruent to each other. How can we prove that? How can we show, no matter what, if two lines intersect, the two non-adjacent angles are going to have the same measure? So that's something to think about that I'll explain in the next video.